special guest. He's a very talented illustrator. He's a best-selling author of This Is Not a T-Shirt, a co-founder of The Hundreds, and more recently co-founder of the Atom Bomb Squad. I want to welcome Bobby Hundreds. Hey, Bobby, how you doing?
What up, G? How's it going, everyone? Thanks for having me.
Thank you for taking the time. I know you're super busy, especially with the recent launch, so I really appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, no problem at all. For those who've been following our project, I think everyone has been very anxiously and very patiently waiting for us to reveal the metadata portion of it. We kind of did a little something different. Withheld the metadata when we popped the reveal on these bombs, and there was some intention behind that. And then along the way, we realized, hey, we actually might want to recalibrate this metadata because we gleaned a lot from the community over the last week as far as what was important to them. And so we're just in the middle of that. I'm literally sitting in a meeting right now with 5 people on my team, and just literally popped out the door and to say hi to everyone and just touch base with you, G, and see how you are. And but yeah, that's where my head is at right now.
Cool, awesome. And I know I speak for everyone when I say thank you for taking the time to chat with us. Yeah, I mean, I guess let's start from the beginning, because I know I remember I reached out to you. I think it was either late March or early April was the first time we spoke. And I'll never forget, because at the time I had just put punks on billboards in Miami. And I was like, okay, like, let's try to get, punks mainstream. And here I remember coming home one day and I saw you posted a picture of you holding a purple hat with a zombie on it. And I was like, oh my God. I'm like, it's happening. It's happening way faster than I thought. And I literally was like freaking out, because I'm like, oh my God, we're about to go like mainstream. So like,
oh boy,
I'd love to hear that story, from you. Like, was that like your first foray was punks, and that Hundreds by Punks piece?
Yeah.
Was that like your first NFT? Like, where, like, how'd you get into NFTs? Like, what's, I guess, your origin story for crypto?
Yeah. Look, last year was a weird year for a lot of people, and I think it kind of threw us a little bit off kilter, a little off balance, but that also opened us up to be receptive to new ideas and to try different things. And not to get too into it, but creatively, I think I was in a much freer space than I've ever been in my life last year, because number one, we had very scarce resources and we were making do with what we had. And I also found myself getting into conversations that I wasn't necessarily attuned to or open to before. And at the end of the year, people had this auction, and my friend Trevor McFedries, he tweeted about it, and I was just really curious. I mean, I was just in like a season of my life where I was reading all sorts of stuff and digging really deep into podcasts, because it was the season to do it, right? We were not 100% back at our jobs and schools and whatnot, and I was like, what is this about? Let me kind of poke at this one. And I was really struck by the element of it that talked about how social apps and the people who had created these companies were really feeding off this free content that we had been creating for them. And maybe this was a way to empower artists again, empower creators to be, number one, compensated for their work, which is very important, sure, but also to be able to access their audience in a way that I hadn't necessarily seen since Web 1. Like, I had been really, really into the blog thing back in 1999 when Blogger launched, and I kind of foresaw, hey, there are some parallels here to how I felt about the technology back then. I'm not a tech person by any means. If anyone's joining and has no idea who I am, I've run a clothing brand, a streetwear brand for the last 18 years, couple decades. I'm totally non-native to this space. But there's just been a couple milestones where technology has really come across my plate in a tantalizing and in a really convincing way. And the first was the blog thing. I grew up in the punk scene, and it was really important for us to have a brand that felt like a punk band would move and maneuver, in the sense that it was transparent. We were all on the same stage together. There was no hierarchy. There was no distance or disconnect between the singers and the crowd. And so the web allowed us to do that through blogging. Everything became transparent. This was the second time that I felt like it was happening. The Beeple auction was sensational. The numbers were staggering, but I think beyond that, I saw, hey, here's a way that we can access and connect with our community. And more importantly, we can have them connect with each other in a way that we've never really been able to before. And so that's what started it off. And then in January, I started having some more conversations. Gary Vee is a really great friend of ours. Gary started hitting me on the side, was just like, all right, now that you're in, and because I had written some essays that were starting to go a little viral, and people were like, okay, this guy's in. And Gary hit me up, was like, now that you're in, look into these punks. And, he was like, they're going to hit 100K floor by the summer. I know it sounds insane to buy one of these little JPEGs, but just trust me. I had doubted Gary on multiple times and throughout my life. And every time, 2 to 3 years later, I kicked myself for it. And I told myself the next time he opens the door and shows me something that I should take note of, I'm probably going to take him up on that offer. And I was faced with a choice. I looked into punks. My partner Ben on the Hundreds and I, we both really started delving into it and learning more about it. And we bought in, and that opened up a conversation with John and Matt, the Larva Labs folks who created the punks. It was really nice to hear that they were fans of us, just from the streetwear perspective, and we were fans of what they had done. And we said, hey, let's do a real official collaboration. They only wanted to make 50 hats, or they only wanted to sell these 50 hats. And so we just did it. And obviously it was really disruptive because they sold out essentially even before they went up for sale, and it caused a lot of commotion. But that started us really on our journey of this is wild. This is a frothy market. But for me, more than anything, short story long, this was a means for us to reach and tap into our community in a way that wasn't available before.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And I feel like you especially, and I think I'm about halfway through your book, but I think you as an artist, right, really see the possibility for what this technology and what it means for creators, and what it means for them to harness this technology going forward, in a way that was never possible before.
Yeah, I've never looked at, we were very early on with blogging in our small niche industry of streetwear. And again, it was very transformative and disruptive for the rest of the industry. But at first, everyone saw it as, oh, the Hundreds is really popular, and it's a really cool young brand right now because of the blog thing. And so they came to me. I spoke on a lot of panels about blogging. Same thing happened with social media. We were one of the first. I was one of the first to really capitalize on Instagram and building the brand. Same with Twitter. Then Snapchat. I was one of the bigger Snapchat creators early on, using these different mediums. And every time I would get invited to speak on it, and different industries, especially clothing, fashion, they would ask, hey, can you teach us about Instagram? Can you teach us about Snapchat? Now it's happening again with NFTs. I have to turn off my phone these days because everyone's like, hey, can you teach me about NFTs? I see that you made some money. I would like to do the same thing. It's all well-intentioned and with good reason, but what I have been reminding people for the last 2 decades is the technology is not the answer, right? If you're looking to technology, to be the solution to all your problems, that is not your problem. It is only just going to be a patch. I've always looked at technology as a way to facilitate, to ease, to perhaps expedite, or to just speed up a process, but it isn't the actual answer. Some technology, and a great way to look at that is that some technologies for me they don't apply. And even though everyone's saying it's the answer, a good example is TikTok. I don't see a pathway for me there. It does nothing to expedite, facilitate my process. It does nothing in terms of the culture and the organic nature of my brand. It just does not help. For some brands it does. My brand, it doesn't fit. And so what we do is when we look at these new technologies popping up and these new innovations, I'm looking at it from a way of like, how can I use that to overcome or surmount an obstacle that is plaguing my process, that is impeding my path to success for what I need to do with my brand right now. And one of the things that I've been wrestling with for the last 20 years is my brand continues to grow and it only becomes more successful. And all of these people are wearing my logos on their backs, walking billboards for me, and yet they are not reaping any of the benefits financially from it. And to be brutally honest, it has only brought me just incredible amounts of guilt. When I see young people that I'm marketing to, that I'm saying, hey, you are not enough if you don't wear these clothes, and they wear the clothes and they support it and they proselytize my message, and then I walk away with all the money. And I'm like, there's such an imbalance there between brands and consumers that is almost unconscionable, that we've never been able to quite reconcile before, and no one acknowledges it because the technology wasn't there to heal that, if that makes any sense. And so for the first time, I was looking at the technology and I was just like, here we go. Here's the answer for how we can repair that huge rift between a consumer and the purveyor. I want us both on the same page, that if you are wearing our product and our brand and you're promoting it, it should somehow benefit you or compensate you in the process. Right now, it's really simple to see, because if you are buying our NFTs with bombs on them, hey, the more that you support our bombs and you wear them, it should, in theory, come back to how well your NFT does in the marketplace. Because people are like, man, I keep seeing that bomb everywhere. I want one of those NFTs. And the better that I do, the better the brand does, the better every NFT holder does of Atom Bomb Squad, right? And so this is probably the most scintillating, the most intriguing part of the technology to me right now. But don't look at NFTs like, oh, that's how I'm going to get in and I'm going to make millions of dollars, or it's going to make me rich overnight. It won't. It will actually probably deplete you of resources. It'll probably weaken you if you can't think of a way for it to actually solve a problem that you've already been wrestling with in another path, right? So that's how I look at all technology. It's been working, but it isn't necessarily the end all be all solution to everyone. Some brands and designers have come to me and been like, I can't figure out how to do this. And I'm like, it's not for you. Stop wasting your time and go do something else. Do TikTok. Okay, TikTok's not for you. Go sell magic crystals. I don't know, whatever it is. But every brand and every designer and artist has their own thing, has their own lane, has their own resources and tools that are best for them. For me right now, NFTs are working. I don't know if it'll always be like that, but for me in this moment, in this season of my life, it works right now.
Wow, that's awesome. There's so much to unpack there. I guess the first question I have, right, is and I'll probably ask 2 or 3 questions in one, is first, what impact, because you're probably having these conversations all the time, is do you find that brands and major clothing brands are receptive to NFT technology and they want to utilize it, or are they kind of being no, this isn't the way, right? This isn't what we want to do. I'm sure you're probably getting both sides of the spectrum, just like I am, but I'm just curious as to, I think that in January, February, March, we had that pop where people were like, oh, this is the NFT bubble and that's it. And I think now over the last 2-3 months, it's been that resurgence, right? Where it's oh man, this might be here to stay and I probably should start paying attention to it.
Yeah, I think it's a spectrum. Everyone in this room can attest to that aspect of it, that I'm sure some of your friends are super passionate, full-on believers, have become radicalized and joined the cult, joined the NFT anon, some people like me. And then there are friends and family members of yours who are maybe a little bit conservative, hesitant, if not outright upset or angered by the topic, right? So I have both surrounding me. I literally have some friends right now who just don't talk to me anymore because they disagree with it all. They are really, and in my opinion, what that tells me is that they're generally scared of it. They're made insecure and maybe a little bit frightened by the subject matter, because Perhaps it makes them irrelevant. Perhaps it makes them feel like they're outside of the conversation. Perhaps it makes some people feel like the world is moving on without them, which if you're one of those people, and I cannot stress this enough, you're not being left behind. No one's being left behind. Number one, this conversation is regenerative every single day. It starts over again. The rules are being rewritten every single day. So if today's day one of you learning about NFTs and the metaverse, you are no further or farther or in front of or behind me, because so many of the rules got rewritten yesterday. Like there was a sevens drop, right, this week that like people realized there's there's like a way to work around some of these security issues, right? There was an OpenSea error yesterday that we were affected by, where one of our bombs got lost, and $100,000 of NFTs just kind of burned out of nowhere. It's like that was not anything I'd anticipated 48 hours ago, and now I know is the truth, right? So no one is being left behind. If you're curious about the conversation. But if you are curious about if you're not curious about the conversation and you don't want anything to do with it, you're totally going to be fine as well. Like that's another part of it. People, I remember during the Snapchat era, and there was a lot of brands that were just super scared, frightened that they were being left behind because they didn't have a Snapchat program. They didn't have a Snapchat coordinator on their team, and oh my God, everyone's leaving Instagram now. And it's like, you're going to be completely fine without it. We all have friends who don't even have social media. And it's not like they're any less or more happy than we are. They're probably more happy, but they're not any less or more successful because of it. So you're going to be fine whether you do this or not. It's still just happening around you. But for us, I think we were really eager and adaptive and open to it because Ben and I are just, the things that scare us the most, the things that confuse us and make us the most fearful, I think we run to them and we embrace them more than a typical person would. And I don't know if that makes us brave or smart. I don't know if it makes us completely stupid and ignorant. But in those scary movies when there's like a killer upstairs or there's like a noise upstairs and like the person runs towards it and you're like, why would you run towards that? That's me. Like I think I wrote about this on my Instagram or Twitter. I have 3 huge fears in life. Number 1 is public speaking, which is what I'm doing right now. Number 2 is drowning. I surf almost every single morning because of it. And number 3 is the dentist. I'm completely fearful of the dentist, so I go get regular checkups every 4 to 6 months. And so it's the same way with the technology. The technology is really daunting and overwhelming to me. NFTs make absolutely no sense to me at all. If you're looking to listen to an NFT expert, you have to leave the room. I don't know anything about it. I'll be the first one to admit I'm completely in the dark. Some parts of it still don't make sense to me. But that is what fascinates me because it is a challenge. It makes me uncomfortable and it makes me more creative because I'm uncomfortable. I only get creative. This is the horrible state that I'm always in, which is if I get too comfortable, I stop being innovative. I stop looking for new solutions. I just get really lazy. And I'm a very lazy person by nature. And so like, you have to put me out of my comfort zone. And this technology freaked me the fuck out. Like, excuse my French, but like, dude, it freaked me out. It still freaks me out. I haven't been so scared in my life as I have in the last week since our bombs have dropped. Like, everything that has opened up for me, all the opportunities that this technology has brought into my life, I can't sleep at night because I'm like, what does this mean for me, my brand, my career? What does it mean for my industry? And what does it mean for my family? What does it mean for my children? But because of that, I want to be on the front lines of figuring it out with everyone else in this room today, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no.
But yeah, that makes, go
makes,
ahead. I talk, unless you stop me, I'm going to keep
talking.
Yeah,
no, that makes total sense. I mean, I love hearing you and your passion. I just want to stop for 1 second because I know a lot of people have been DMing me about the POAP. The POAP is about to go live at 7:20. It's probably in about 10 seconds right now. So the URL to claim the POAP for the live viewers is gmoney.ai/POAP, POAP. And that link is also available in my bio, and it will be open for the next 20 minutes. So yeah, Bobby, you said so much.
Quick, just continuing on this vein that I don't know anything about NFTs. Can you explain POAPs
Yeah,
to me?
so POAPs, it's a proof of attendance protocol, right? So basically, it's almost like a ticket. Think of it as like a ticket stub to going to a concert, or like basically like a bookmark for your life. I believe that might be the tagline that they use. But the first time I actually heard about it was right before Miami, and I wanted to do something that was really cool and fun for my followers in Miami. And I reached out to POAP, and they sent me a bunch of QR codes. And what I did was I hired a couple models to stand at 3 different locations over the course of 3 different days. I made some Miami themed artwork with my ape on it. So like the first day was Miami Vice, the second day was Scarface, and the third day was Pitbull, right? And it was just like this fun, cool thing to do. So what I ended up doing was I tweeted about it, like I think it was like maybe an hour or 30 minutes before. And I was like, hey, if the first 100 people that show up to this place will be able to claim a POAP. And then the first 20 people will get like some sort of like $5 gift certificate, because it was usually at like a coffee store. Because I'm like, let's play around with this, right? Because like my thought process is, if I'm not gonna to sit there and figure out like what works, like we as pioneers of the NFT industry need to kind of show like the real world celebrities, like what is possible with this technology. And I think doing something as cool and simple like that, I thought was really cool. And I like the feedback that I got over the course of 3 days. I had about 30 people attend each day. Some people collected all 3. And like a lot of people DM me, and a lot of people even said is like, that was one of the most fun things I did in Miami. And I was like, all right, cool. Like, I want to implement this more into what I do, right? So it's like, how can I encourage people to come in and listen live and join the gmoney community and get rewarded for it, right? So basically, it's like by doing that, coming in, joining live, they can go to the link, claim the POAP, and it's literally just the badge that, it has a picture of my ape, and it says the cutting edge with gmoney episode 2, kind of just literally like a ticket stub. Right? There's no value for it. There's no like secondary market for it. I guess unless people really want to trade them. But like that to me is like kind of like, I think, a very cool and organic way to build a community. And I think like a couple of years from now, like you're gonna see like people like, oh yeah, like I was there, right? Like I was in Paris for ETCC, and I was literally running around to all the booths collecting POAPs. Like it was just fun, like, and I think that's something that like NFTs really tap into, is kind of helping people understand like, that like humans like to collect things, whether it's stickers, baseball cards, tickets, whatever it is, seashells, that like this is something that's inherently human and part of the human experience. So like, I think the fact that we can kind of bring it on chain, and then, at some point being like, hey, Bobby, like, or you can take a look at my wallet and be like, oh, he went to these events, right? Like, I know Blau did one also in Miami for the people that were in attendance for the night that he was spinning during Bitcoin Miami. And it's like, that's like a ticket stub that you have on chain forever, right? Like, how many times have we like lost stuff in like our shoe boxes because we were moving, or we were careless for like a couple minutes and we didn't realize it. So I really do think that POAPs are like super cool and super fun. So that's kind of why I've been trying to implement them with the stuff that I do. And I bet you could find an awesome way to implement it with your stuff as well.
100%. And this case in point, I learned something that maybe, I hope I'm not the only one who learned more about POAPs today by what she just told us.
No,
I might be one of the stupidest people in the room, so that's very possible, but I learned something new. So that's a beautiful thing. I love it. I loved collecting concert stubs, all the shows I went to growing up. I'm a big memento. I'm a very sentimental person, and so like to be able to collect these experiences as like souvenirs, I love that.
Awesome. I'm super stoked to hear that. And, if you obviously need any help with that going forward, I could put you in touch with the right people to talk to about that. Because I do think it's like a great way to, because they're also free to mint, and so it's a great way to kind of build community and reward them for just for partaking in it. So yeah. So I guess like I guess going back to what you were just talking about before is like, what do you like, how do you see NFTs empowering not only specific your brand, but I guess brands in general that like you didn't think could be done before, right? Like I assume like just by the way you're talking, you're obviously super focused on your community and being able to interact and give back to them. So like, what is it that you're most excited about that NFT tech is allowing for you to do?
Wow, yeah. So when I think of why we wear brands, I believe there are three legs that that stands on. We wear them because we feel a sense of community. We feel a sense of identity in that the brands, they say something about you and who you are, the opinions that you have, the worldviews that you share. And then the third tenet of it is that you feel a sense of ownership in the brand. And through the NFTs, now you do have some kind of actual real ownership in the brand. The community is empowered more than ever through platforms like Discord. So community, ownership, and identity more than anything. You're seeing that right now, just even in the room, by how people are using their profile pictures, swapping out with NFTs and whatnot. And so those three things, as far as a wearable brand, like I'm in fashion, clothing, if you're in that space, I think NFTs really reinforce those three tenets and make them bolder in a way that we have never really quite seen before. I think, our project's only been out for about a week now, and I've already been mind blown by how strong and vehement this community has become around this thing in a way where it's almost like Frankenstein's monster. I look on it and I'm almost bewildered by how it's taken on a life of its own. And one thing, there were many things I didn't anticipate, first to admit that I was just completely naive to in making an NFT project. I was approaching it from a space of, hey, look, here's a way where we can all win. Hey, look, here's a membership card to our club. We're going to give you access to early links and build collections just for you and have events just for you. It's going to be fun. And then also there's like a trading card collectible fun part of this too, where you can swap them out with each other. So that's how I was going into this entire Atom Bomb Squad. What I didn't see on the other side of it was essentially what we had done is we kind of had gone public with that brand, the brand of Atom Bomb, right? So for 18 years, we're cultivating and reinforcing this icon, this streetwear icon of this cartoon bomb with his mouth ajar. And we went public with it the other night. And when we went public with it, now there's 7,500, let's say, unique shareholders of this Atom Bomb who have a voice that I am hearing loud and clear now, have an idea for what they want Atom Bomb to be, and are coming up with ideas and creativity around Atom Bomb in ways I never imagined. And the information is just just overwhelming how much information is coming in. It's kind of like we started a company in 40 minutes and a company that has a thriving community that is passionate and is ready to go. So I have a friend of mine who is a very popular musician, and he's like thinking of doing his own NFT collectibles and is working on something. And he called me last night. He's like, yo, how's it going? And I was like, I got to tell you something. I think you should do it, but you have to know what it's going to come with. It's another full-time job. It's another full company. And in the end, the theory is that it will only go to bolster your brand and the community that you already have. But for the time being, it's going to be a runaway train. And until I can catch up to this thing, I'm just like marveling at how our community has come together. Imagine their atom bombs in a way. They're building subgroups in subservers on Discord and meeting together and building their own communities, making new friends. I wanted all that. Like I really wanted to use this as a way to bring people together and build friendships, because we've been able to do that through the hundreds over the years. But it's happening so fast and with so much force that I'm just really taken aback by it all. So it's a really beautiful thing to watch. But brands, you have a lot of opportunity here. There's a lot of power. And so it's untapped. I think, we just got off a call with our friend Russ at Sir. Russ is a streetwear icon, OG streetwear brand called Sir. One of his collaborative bombs that he did with us is actually in the collection. And, we were just talking about how this has brought an energy into the hundreds, revitalized elements of it that have been asleep for many years. The brand has been popular in its own channel, and we've just been in our lane doing streetwear, and we have our cult following, and we have our popularity.
Yeah.
But it's almost like we're starting over, and so like people, like an 18-year-old streetwear brand, as cool as it can be, is never going to be the new kid on the block. And so like I'll never be able to experience what it's like to be that 23-year-old kid again, starting a t-shirt brand in his garage, where someone's like, I've never seen this before. You're the coolest shit of, that's the rule of streetwear, is that you're never as cool as day one. Every day that goes by, there's like another guy who's just like, well, I wore that on Wednesday. Now you're wearing it on Friday, so it's not cool to me anymore. We're starting to be able to experience what it's like to be a brand new brand again. And for the customers of ours, or the community that has returned to us because of this project, for them, it has been like this beautiful, beautiful reminder. It's brought it back into their lives. And so like, that energy has been super positive and loving. And I don't know. I just think once brands start really getting involved and understanding how to use this to their own benefit, to reinforce their own brand and their own history and principles, everything's going to change.
So, yeah.
You know that.
So I have a question about that. I just want to remind everyone there's 8 minutes left to claim the POAP. The URL is gmoney.ai/POAP. It's also the link in my profile for those that wish to claim the POAP. But I guess the first question that comes to mind is, like you said, that you basically took the brand public, took the Atom Bomb public. Were you nervous about that? Because I feel like that's one of those things that obviously IP is always one of those things that people talk about. And you, as somebody that is a creator of IP and holds your own IP, that I'm sure that the thought crosses your mind of like how to deal with that. What happens when like you kind of give it to like your fans and your fan base, and like were you nervous about like, oh man, this could end poorly? Because I know personally from a lot of conversations that I'm having, like to talk about, the community owns it, like that's like hearsay, right? For like the modern consumerism up until the last, for the last 70 years, up until this year, has been all about protect the IP at all costs. And it's very interesting, and I'm very interested to see where it goes with regards to how do creators and holders of IP deal with that going forward, right? Because there also is a huge value to creating that community and having people take more of a sense of ownership, as opposed to just being a t-shirt that they like. It's now like a brand that they feel they fully identify with, right? So like, was that a thought that like crossed your head while you were preparing to do the drop?
Yeah, it's something that we've thought about since the very beginning. And when I say the very beginning, I'm talking about the beginning of the brand. You're reading my book right now. You're going to get to a chapter where I talk about my relationship with Atom Bomb. It's interesting in hindsight, and I can't wait to write the second book now. I've been waiting to find a way to write the follow-up to that book, and it's starting to materialize. Because that book ends with me almost still wondering, a little bit confused and curious about why Atom Bomb even exists in my life. I drew that character very early on in the brand as a mascot, and our icon, our logo at the time, and it still is it's more of a silhouette of this classic looking bomb. And my partner Ben, he walked into my room one night and was like, yo, like, why don't you draw a caricature version of that icon that we have, like an anthropomorphic style cartoon bomb, because you love drawing cartoons. And I do. I'd always fancied myself a cartoonist above all else. And I was like, yeah, you're right. I guess why I've never done that before. And so I drew the bomb. And at first, no one really cared about him. I put him up on my blog and I said, hey, community, why don't you name him? You tell me what his name is. At that time, like we had maybe 200, 300 people who emailed in, right? There's no social media. People from around the world who were reading my blog were like, hey, call him Bombi Hundreds, call him, whatever. And two different people said Atom Bomb, two people on different sides of the planet, actually. And I was like, I think that's kind of funny. And if you watch the video on our ABS website, I talk about how I thought it was funny to call something inanimate a human name, like, and not that the dog is inanimate, but Brian on Family Guy. I always thought it was funny that his name was Brian. It's a dog. So I was like, yeah, that'd be rad if his name was Adam. And at that time, I built a MySpace page for him and everything. But over the years, he just, like this project, he just took on a life of his own, and it was a runaway train. I could not catch up to this character. He ended up dictating a lot of our design decisions because he was our smash hit single. And there were some days where when I would get up on stage, people were like, yo, play that Atom Bomb song. And I would like to play it. But as my career went on, it started to eclipse a lot of the work that I had been doing that I thought was important, right? At the end of the day, I'm a fashion designer. So I'm building and designing these really complicated collections using technical materials, fabrics and heavy construction, everything, right? And then stores or buyers would come to us and say, yeah, well, can you put that bomb character on there or it's not going to sell well? That's how prominent, that's how successful and popular Atom Bomb became. And at that point, I started writing about it in the book where I'm like, yo, why is this guy even in my life? I have this really frustrated relationship with him where I have to acknowledge he's built the house that I live in, like literally and metaphorically. Like the office that I'm in right now, we have 100 people in here. Atom Bomb is essentially their boss. My kids always used to make the joke that you work for Atom Bomb, and in a way I very much do. And I've always wondered, why is this in my life? And so around 5-6 years ago, we made a very conscious decision with the brand. And it hurt us sales-wise for years. In fact, we've never quite caught up, being brutally honest about that. We made a decision to cleave our business between the Hundreds and Atom Bomb. And it was a really conscious decision. And Atom Bomb started becoming its own collection on one side, and the Hundreds started operating on its own on the other. And at first, it really hurt us. There was a few years there where we were in a drought, and I talk about that in the book, where I couldn't even pay ourselves. Like I had to pay the staff before I could bring home any money to like pay off like our mortgage payments and whatnot, because no one wanted to do anything with our brand if the bomb wasn't on it. But eventually, we got to a place where the brand now exists without Atom. With or without Atom, it actually performs just fine, and fans of the Hundreds know this. We do these really cool collaborations. We do drops once a week, and it's actually very rare that you'll see an Atom Bomb on any of it, and it's doing just great. It's just the brand is humming along. Meanwhile, Atom Bomb is now over here on the other side, doing fine on his own. And so we had gotten to this really right moment earlier this year where we're like, oh my God, Atom Bomb has actually become his own brand now. We got to a place where he can be on his own. And just like it was in the very beginning, he doesn't belong. Like you were saying, how does it feel now that the community has it? The community always had Atom Bomb. The community was always driving that bus. Like we were never in control of him. Even from when we named him, I didn't name him. The community named him. I named the Hundreds. I designed the Hundreds. Like that's my baby. Right. But Atom Bomb was never mine. I just didn't know how to give it to the community completely until this project opened up. And so the technology opened this path where for the first time in 18 years, we were saying, hey, it's actually yours. It's not like yours in a theoretical way. It's yours. You tell me what to do with it. We are listening to you. And so that's probably been the biggest breakthrough that has come out of all of this, is that it's allowed us to finally give Atom Bomb back to its rightful owners and say, now you benefit from it. If I die tomorrow, I know that the community has got Atom Bomb's back and will make it successful whether I'm here or not.
That's awesome. It's like it's almost all coming full circle. So that's awesome to hear. For those that haven't claimed the POAP yet, I think there's less than 1 minute until the POAP window is closed, and you can say that you were here live listening to Bobby Hundreds on the Cutting Edge. And I guess all this talk about community really has me thinking about a conversation that we brought up a little bit when I hopped into your Twitter Spaces last week or the week before on the drop, or it was the drop or the reveals. I don't remember which one, but I really want to talk about this because I think it's like really prescient to what's going on in the space, and the tribalism versus collaboration. And I know we touched on it a little bit when we were on your Twitter Spaces, but I'd love to get your perspective as someone that's been doing this for decades. That you said you saw this same thing happen in streetwear, where first it was tribalism and then it became all about collaboration. And you see almost like the renaissance that's happening right now with streetwear. What are your thoughts, I guess, on the tribalism in the space? Because like, to me, I'm all about like unity. Like, who cares if you're part of Punks or Bored Ape Yacht Club or Cool Cats or whatever? Like, we're all here early. We're all like believers in the tech, and like we're all gonna make it, right? As they say. But like, sometimes like I get disheartened by the tribalism. So as you having lived it and seen it in the streetwear culture, like what's the roadmap from here? What are the parallels and the contrast that you see compared to what you saw with streetwear?
Yeah, gee, that's a great point. So early on in the streetwear days, we did see something this is very reminiscent to what I remember back then. And it happens amongst all subcultures, especially the ones that are dynamic and moving very fast. You saw it happen also on the socio-political side over the last several years, right? Tribalism comes from a place of people, to be honest, to be real, it's rooted in a lot of fear. And it's the sense of tribalism. People are banding together and it looks like community, but it's not necessarily community. It's based out of we're trying to differentiate ourselves. We believe that we're more righteous. We believe that our point of view is stronger than the next. And so we're going to band together and stick together because we're afraid of what's on the outside. I get that, right? Like, I grew up a really angry teenager. I grew up in the punk scene. I grew up skating. I grew up being very tribal. The early brands in streetwear were also very tribal. They didn't converse amongst themselves. There were very few bridges that were built. Some of the older guards still behave in that way. And it comes from an arrogance, but it also comes from a deep, deep insecurity. And when we entered the streetwear space in the early 2000s, the thing that we wanted to do was we wanted to usher in as many new people and open up this world to as many ripe, young, excited minds as possible. And that went completely opposite to what the nature of streetwear was at the time, which was to be like, there was literally a brand called tribal streetwear that was popular. And people didn't like that. People didn't want that. They're like, why are you bringing so many people in? Why are you letting the secret out? This is an underground community. It's a secret club. Like, no one should know about this. But you know how things happen in the dark. Like, that's where I think a lot of poison just festers and rots. And so I was like, why? Why don't we let as many people into this? It's a really amazing secret that we can all have together. It's just only brought like great joy into my life. Like, I love streetwear. It's changed my life for the best. So I'm going to start bringing in as much of our community in here as possible. And in the process of doing it, let's start working amongst the tribes. Let's start collaborating with as many people as possible. A lot of people shit on collaborations today because it kind of seems like a tired hack, like, oh, another collab, another collab. Well, the essence and the essential idea of what collaborations were there for was to bring two different minds together to create something new, right? Like 1 + 1 = like 1,000,000. Like, you would have never gotten that if these two sides hadn't come together. So collaborations were just about like bringing people out of their tribes, making them work together. And it's like, let's create something that betters everybody. I see the same thing happening here in NFTs, and it makes a lot of sense. You know, everyone's kind of holding onto their flag saying, I'm over here. This is what this is about. Because, to be frank, I think there's just a lot of fear and insecurity out there because we don't have a lot of information. Everything is moving so fast. There's people that are taking advantage of each other. There's a lot of scamming going on. We're all kind of wandering around in the dark. We're all holding onto our ledgers and our cold wallets and like wondering who's going to try to come and siphon us next. And so you're retreating into tribes to keep yourself safe. You're retreating into your discourse, into your servers, because you're like, I don't trust anyone else out there, but I think I can trust you. Eventually, and hopefully, and like with, I believe that we're going to get to a place where we're all going to feel comfortable with each other. Like, you're not trying to fuck me over, right? You're not trying to fuck me over? All right, let's work together. And that side of collaboration is where community happens. Community is the complete antithesis to tribalism. Community is like where we come together, we heal, we build, we create, and then we take this thing for the long run. Like once that started happening in streetwear, we went from being tribal to start collaborating, and then community happened. Look at what happened with streetwear over the last 20 years. It's mainstream fashion, right? It's on the Paris runways. It's on everyone's backs. Like everyone has a hoodie in their closet now and is into cool looking Nikes. Like that just went completely mainstream. Imagine, just take a minute to like imagine what that'll do for NFTs and for the metaverse once we all start letting our guards down a bit and go like, yo, I can trust you. I like you. Like even we might have different views, but we can work on this together, right? Like that's what I'm so excited about, because I'm like, oh man, we're not even there yet. I've been trying to do collabs. Like we did the CryptoPunks one. Even that was a little bit of a stretch. Like John and Matt were like, oh, we don't really know how to do this. And we're like, no, we got you. We do this all the time. Trust me, it'll be beautiful. Like we can make it benefit everyone. People like that. Next one is Bored Apes. Look at how much happiness that brought people, right? Like to do the Bored Apes. Oh my God, Bored Apes in the hundreds together. Artifact is like crushing their collaborations right now, doing such a great job. Like the more and more we see the collaborations, the more trusting people will be of the space. The more people realize that there's more friends out there than adversaries. Right? Like what we want to do is we want to make people feel very secure and safe in this space. And that's not meaning let your guard down and start showing your QR codes to anyone who says your customer support. I'm saying like, that means like, hey, I need help setting up a cold wallet, or like, can you tell me how to protect my NFT drop from getting hacked like that one did? Like, that's where we need to get to a place where you can start reaching out to people for help and being like, hey, we're all safe. We're all here for the benefit. We're all here for the greater good. We need to start collaborating together. So that's around the corner, in my opinion. And once that happens, that's when this thing really turns as a culture.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think you see it like here and there in communities, right? Like I think it starts to spring up, but then obviously sometimes I feel like just nature, human instinct takes over, and whatever, it is what it is. But like me overall, like I think that the one beautiful thing that crypto provides is like, it helps really, at least for me, it really helped shift my mindset from one of scarcity to one of abundance. And I think when you start operating under that mindset of abundance, you want to help others, right? Like there's definitely this human satisfaction and this human fulfillment that comes from being able to help others. Of, not only can you be successful, but others can be. You don't have to be successful at other people's expense, right? And that's basically the essence of what collaboration is,
I love that. I totally agree. I think once I can't even add to that. I think you're absolutely right.
Okay, cool. I'm being mindful of time. So I want to ask like one, maybe two more questions, and then I'll get you out of here. But what do you think it is? Like what will be that moment that takes crypto mainstream, you think? Like what are NFTs mainstream?
Oh wow. It's going to require more of us doing what we're doing right now. Each one needs to teach one, right? Each one needs to help out and help the next get in. The barrier of entry is very high and complicated and confusing. I still don't know how to do it, and I've been doing this all year. Like there's things that I'm still figuring out. But it'll get to a point where I think the infrastructure will finally catch up to the ideas, and it'll be a little bit easier to onboard into the space. Until we get there, I'm trying to do my part to explain NFTs and the metaverse in a way that is very digestible for the layperson. My wife, for example, is just completely, number one, not interested, but also very perplexed by this subject. And so, I practice with her. I practice with my children every day. We run through hypotheticals if they're willing to entertain me, because everyone is exhausted hearing me speak on this subject by now. But we'll just bring it up as hypotheticals. And so I'm just doing that. I don't really try to push the topic on anybody, but if anyone is just curious, I've been hosting like Zooms amongst friends. I used to do that like almost every day, because everyone kept asking me questions about it. So if you're willing to help the next, like, please try, and it's not that you're saying that you're an expert or anything. It's just munching on the conversation. Like, we love the conversation. It's the possibilities and the opportunities and the why not. It's like, why couldn't you do that? Anything is quite possible right now. If NFTs do nothing for you in the NFT space, I promise you, just delve into the conversation, because it might unlock something in your brain to think of a different thing in your life, a different creative path, something that might be bothering you at work. Let's say you work at a bank and you can't get over one thing. This conversation is so jarring and so new and foreign that once you start exploring in here, it might unlock things for you over there. And I know that sounds wild, but I've been creating in a way that I haven't been able to create before. I'm happier in a way. I surf almost every morning. Like, I swear to God, it helps me in my like physical activity. Like, I'm looking at things completely different, because once you look at it this way, you can't unsee it. Like, I can never go back to looking at my life the way that before I realized what the metaverse was, before I realized the capabilities of the blockchain. Right? Like, I know you're like that too, right, G? It's like, I can never go back.
Oh,
to that.
yeah, for sure. And even
right?
to touch upon what you were saying about, like, we're all learning and nobody knows anything, like, a lot of times people will reach out to me like, oh, you're the expert on NFTs. I'm like, listen, we're all learning, right? Like, new things come out every single day. You have to have, like, once you, I think, take that experience of, or that thought of being like, oh, I know everything there is to know, and like, this is what NFTs are. Like, you're not going to progress, right? And you're not going to progress the space forward. And that to me is like, part of the reason why I started this podcast was because I want to help get like the word out there to like the mainstream, right? And like, what better way to do it than by bringing people who are culturally relevant like yourself, and helping your audience understand NFTs and crypto in a very friendly way. That maybe they listen to this podcast and they want to go down the rabbit hole, and you do that little by little. Sooner or later we have a movement, right? Because they tell their friends and they tell their friends, and that to me is really kind of like where I'm at myself, and I know you are too. Just by seeing like what you're doing in the space, and I'm always in awe with everything that I see you guys doing, and like I'm super stoked with what you guys are up to. I guess last question. This is it, the last one. I promise. Before you go, like, I guess, what do you have planned, or any teasers that you're working on of how any cool new things you're doing with NFTs that maybe you haven't totally shared with a lot of people yet, if you can.
Oh man. I will. Well, look, the most important thing for all the ABS members in the room is we're working on this metadata for everyone. So we're getting that to you. I won't do anything before I do that. So that's coming. That's on the way. But aside from that, I don't know if I can speak on too much yet. I don't like to overpromise and underdeliver. I'd rather underpromise and overdeliver.
I understand. I just wanted to see if I could get something out of you.
No, I mean, look, I will say that it's been amazing, man. Like, especially the last week, but over the last 6 months, in our world, we're kind of known as the NFT guys now, right? Like, you're like the NFT guy in your friend circle, I'm assuming. Most everyone in here is like the NFT person in their friend circle. I had a call with Edison Chen earlier. He runs a brand called Clocked. And, I haven't talked to Ed in a minute. And Ed was just like, what's up, NFT guy, and like everyone calls us that now. Like, man, you guys are crushing it. You've inspired me to do this and that. And so a lot of people have come to us with opportunities of like things that they want to try or work on or expand on. Artists, friends of ours who are like, hey, can I do this? And I'm like, I would love to have one of your collectibles. Yes. Like, just as a personal fan, let us help you do that. And so right now we just touched on this on the earlier question, but my main objective in all of this, and it's reflected in my last 18 years of streetwear, I wasn't trying to be the coolest streetwear brand, the most pinnacle streetwear designer. It was never really of my interest. I wanted to be, though, regarded as the best educator, the best teacher, the best facilitator in the space to help other people get there. It's not as sexy of a job. It doesn't get written about much, but it brings me the most fulfillment. Like, I can stand on top of a Paris runway show and be like, yo, like, I'm the illest, I'm the best designer. But if there's no one else up there with me, then it doesn't do much. And so my job for the last 18 years was to get as many people onboarded onto streetwear as possible. My blog was used for that. And then we built a website around that. Duke is listening to this right now. Duke London, who's our editor on a website. Like, we have a media platform just to help people get onboarded onto streetwear. I think we've done a great job over the last couple decades and gotten a lot of people to understand how a lot of the brands work and how to build their own brands. And now many have their own careers because of it. Now I feel like my job is to do the same in NFTs and the metaverse. As I'm learning, I want to teach the next person. I just want to get as many people into this as possible, and like, that's a win. So that's all I'm here to do. You know, and right now it seems to be working. But as long as like I can just be a great educator and pass the information along, like as I'm learning things, especially things that not a lot of people know, and I can pass it on. I think like I'll leave this world, especially this NFT space, like feeling very content with what I've done.
Amazing. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for spending this time with us. Super insightful. You've got a beautiful soul, and I'm really looking forward to what you're working on in the future, and all the things that you guys are gonna be doing for the space. If anybody missed out on a piece of the conversation, it's going to be available immediately for consumption on YouTube, as well as any of your podcast listening services. And Bobby, thank you for taking the time. I know I speak for everyone when I say thank you, and keep up the awesome work. And I can't wait to see what you guys are up to.
Oh, thanks so much, E. I really appreciate everyone's time. Thanking you so much for listening.
All right, thank you. All right, and thanks for